Hello. I've seen some of you before. This is the second talk I've done here now. First one was a lightning talk about WordPress multi-site. My name's Adam. I'm from a local agency called Orbital Design, based about 5-10 minutes away. And I sort of tend to specialize in front-end WordPress development. If you ever want to ask me questions or tweet me or talk about anything after this, then my Twitter handle is @zcullen. But today we're going to talk to you about ACF. I wonder, what was I going to say next? Sorry, it's been manic this week, so I haven't actually had a chance to go through this, which is really bad. But so what is ACF? So today we're here to talk to you about the Army Cadet Force. Or maybe not, that's just me trying to be funny, because if you do Google ACF, all you tend to find is Army Cadet Force everywhere. So there's the one bit of humour from this presentation gone. Just goes downhill from here. That's what the first slide should have looked like. Had to remove the description for humour. So I'm going to talk to you about Advanced Custom Fields, which is a plugin made by a guy called Elliot Condon, who's based in Australia. He actually emailed me about 2 days ago, out of the blue, when he saw on Twitter that we're doing this talk, and started talking to me about it, which was quite good. So these are sort of some of the things we're going to go through today. I didn't really know who to gear it towards, so we're going to start with people that have never sort of touched custom fields in WordPress, and then go a little bit more advanced. It goes a lot more advanced than what I'm going to talk about today, so it's quite an extensive plugin. So the first one really is, has anyone ever used WordPress's custom fields, not the Advanced Custom Fields plugin? No? Does anybody not know that they exist until I just said that? No? Okay, that's good. So custom fields, the WordPress codex, but that's what I won't bother reading it to you. But basically, custom fields in WordPress allow you to add extra metadata to sort of posts and pages. So you can give your client, say, more of just a WYSIWYG to edit their pages. Now, they can be. When you first look at them, it can look like, well, what's the point in using them? But they're actually an incredibly powerful feature of WordPress. It allows you to add things like opening times to a blog without actually having to just go and WYSIWYG and keep trying to say, some people will build a table in a WYSIWYG, and it can become quite a pain to manage that, especially when a client goes in and just clicks on a number, starts deleting, and then all of a sudden you've lost a few columns or rows. So it just allows you to add that, because you can add a custom field for Monday, and then you can add the times for Monday, and you can add one for or day of the week, so you got Monday, and then one for times for Monday, and you can go like that, and you can pull that information out on your all individually, which is really handy. A lot of people don't actually know that custom fields exist, because when you install WordPress and set it up, they're actually hidden behind the screen options menu on an edit page. So it's quite shocking, actually, the amount of people I've spoken to that never clicked on the screen options button in the top right. I found that quite a lot lately, that people don't even know that button exists. So I just filled in a quick demo one just to show you what you can do. It's a little bit smaller on that screen, but I just did say if you were to add something to a WordPress Bournemouth site, you might put the next speaker, when it is, where it is, which is sort of the perfect use for custom fields, really. The problem with custom fields is that the more custom fields you add, the harder they will become to manage. The edit page can become a bit messy, and then if you start using custom fields on more than one page or more than one template, it gets even more complex. And just trying to pull that information using WordPress hooks and filters and stuff. Everybody knows that some of WordPress's stuff goes around the houses a little bit when you're trying to get information, which is why other people might use things like Twig or Timber. But that's where advanced custom fields comes in. So ACF is probably the most vital tool in a lot of WordPress developers' toolbox. We were quite shocked actually at a recent talk. One of the speakers asked who has used advanced custom fields, and only about 3 or 4 people put their hands up, which we were quite shocked about, which is where this talk actually came from. Advanced Custom Fields has a massive, over 1 million active installs, so that's just not installs overall, that's actually being used on live WordPress sites right now. And to have 1 million plus active installs and have a 5-star rating on the WordPress plugin directory is really quite an achievement, which shows how good it is. Some of the things that make it so good is that you can visually create the custom fields quicker than, say, coding them. Let's say, I don't know how many people have ever tried to code custom fields into the pages. That can become quite challenging or even just time consuming. They're easy to manage. You can add fields to more than one page really quickly, so you don't have to keep rebuilding the same ones all the time. There's a massive array of different types of input fields, so you're not just got like a text field and a text area field, but that's something we'll get onto a bit later on. And it uses WordPress's main functions to power a lot of it, so it's not adding a lot of extra bloated code that's rewriting anything else, if that makes sense. But the best thing I think for me is the documentation and the support community. I think WordPress itself has quite an amazing community and quite an amazing set of documentation. If you ever need to do something, 9 times out of 10 you'll probably find a way of find out how to do it from online, or at least find somebody that's willing to help you find out how to do it. ACF's no different. Considering the fact it's a one-man band, the documentation is incredible. And if you don't find it on the on the documentation, you'll more than likely find that the guy who wrote the plugins answered a question about it on the forums. So the documentation basically just looks like that on their website. It's for a long page. It covers literally every single thing you could think of to do with it. I would say that when I was going through this, I was clicking on things that I've never actually clicked on, and found that a little bit of it is a tiny bit out of date, where it's evolved and the guys sit behind a little bit, but the majority of the stuff you'll actually use is there ready to go. The best part about it is if you were to leave here today and think, oh, I want to try advanced custom fields, there's a really good getting started guide on there that goes through installing the plugin, setting up all the fields, how to put them onto pages, how to get them into the templates, etc. What I will say is pretty much nothing that I have put in this you can't find on the documentation. Pretty much most of it's probably come from there, just because it's so good and everything's there for you. So with ACF, it's all built on the idea of what we call field groups. So if you were to say you've built a template for a website and that template is called, I don't know, contact page, you could build a field group specifically for that page. Now, a field group is basically where you can store a set of fields. And then that field group, you can then set rules to only show that field group on the contact page, or show that on the contact page and on the home page. So that's how you control where your fields will show. Now, each field group also has a lot of other settings. It's got like visual settings, so you can use it to hide things like WordPress's default fields. So you can hide the content field if you want to. You can hide the featured image field if you're using like the standard post type. If you write a custom post type, the odds are you've probably hidden that anyway. But you can hide all sorts with it, from revisions to author to page format, page attributes. However, with that, if you assign more than one field group to a page, it will accept the rules of whichever field group is highest on the list. So if you hide the content on one, but you've actually let the content show on the one above it, then that content field will show. But that's a bit more advanced, and it's not really too much to worry about right now. So these are the options that are in the field group for you that you have to take care of when you go. So you have to name the field group. It's always sensible to name the field group something that is obvious and actually you'll know where it's probably placed. I went into one the other day and it's onto somebody else's site and it was just called text fields. And from that you sort in a group where you've got about 20 different field groups. Without actually going into the field and looking around, it's pretty impossible to know what fields are in there or what where it is. The other things really I've just spoken about. The location setting is actually quite a good one as well, because with location you can set really complex rules. So you can start saying, I want it to show for this custom post type, however I don't want it to show for this post in this post type and this post in this post type. Or I want to show it for this custom post type, but I want to show it for this taxonomy of another post type. So you can get really complex with how you can show the field, so you're not necessarily just setting, I want it on that one and that one. You can get really complex right down to like page templates, or I want it on all of these pages unless they have this template. So it's really, really handy feature, and the more you use ACF, the more you'll come to love it. So one of the best, I'm going to probably say this a lot, one of the best things about ACF. I mean, personally, I love it. So most of it is probably the best thing about ACF. But this is a list of all of the fields and different input types you actually get in ACF. The ones with the Pro next to it are part of the paid add-on, which we'll talk a little bit more towards the end of it. You don't necessarily need those ones, but they are very worth getting. So as you can see, there's a massive amount of different input types you can use. We've only found one or two occasions out of probably about 100 odd websites since we started using ACF where it didn't cater to what we actually wanted to do. So I'm going to go through a few of the fields and how to set them up. I'm not going to go through all of them because we'll be here all night. We might even still be here tomorrow and then you'll all be late for work. So we'll start with like the simplest field, which is the text field. So you have 5 or 6 options in there. I don't think I wrote them all down, but basically you've got default value. So if you want a value to already be in the field, so that was automatically in the page. It's all pretty straightforward. Placeholder text. If you want anything to come before or after the text, it's like standard PHP really. And character limits, and that's literally what you have to do. You have to, and you also, for every field, you have to supply a name, a field name, and then what I call a slug, like most people do. As long as those slugs are different across all of the fields, then you'll be fine. Again, make sure that they describe what they actually are, rather than just write name, because when it comes to writing your PHP and trying to pull the right variables in everywhere, just having really poorly named things isn't going to help you very much. Yeah. One of the handiest ones that I use probably far too much is the image field. The best thing about the image field is that the return value lets you get the image in different formats. So you can get it as an image object where you can get the ID, and then from the ID you can then get like the alt tags, the sizes, everything that you've supplied of that image. Or you can just return the URL from it if you want to, which is a separate setting. So you can just literally then in your code put image source and then call the field. You can also set really nice things like minimum and maximum widths and heights. So if you've got a specific set of size that you need, like an image for a hero banner, stops your client being able to make the site look really horrible by suddenly sticking in a square image in a rectangle space and it blowing up and not looking right. And like, what's a really sensible thing is the allowed file types as well. So you can just limit it to say JPEGs or PNGs, which is a nice touch. Well, that's going to be really small. Can you all see that? Or is that really small? I really underestimated the size of the screen. I do apologise. All it is really is just showing how, like, a basic example of how you would call the image in the template. So if you wanted to put the image in, it's pretty straightforward, and you can see it online if you're interested. That basically, all this line does is it just says image, it sets the image variable, and then it says it gets the field from the database, and you put the name of the slug of the field in there, and then it just checks if there's actually an image being input in the CMS or not, and if it has been, then you just call it through image source and then the URL. If you look at it on your computers, it'll look a lot better, it'll look a lot simpler. Yeah.
What does _e do?
That's WordPress's built-in echo function. So rather than write echo and on like that, you can just do _e brackets and write whatever you want. Yeah.
It's more of a localization thing, because you can just pass in a text name to be an output, but it can be then translate, that string can be translated.
Yeah, I've used like ___ and _x, but I never come across the user.
It's just it prints it straight away.
Another interesting one, especially if you want to build a sort of theme that people can customize quite a lot, is the color picker field. It literally just, it has a little color swatch in the CMS, and then you can click on it and you get a whole, I can't remember what the word is for the color. It's like a color wheel, but yeah, it's like that. Or you can put like hex values and RGB values in, and you can save those colors. And then you can call them into the page. So if you wanted the client to be able to change colors of fonts or backgrounds, it's a really nice way of being able to add all that information. Now this one is my favorite field. I am very guilty of using this one probably in every single website that I build, probably more than once. I can't believe I didn't know about it until about 3 or 4 months ago, and then from there it's just completely taken over every website that I build. What the repeater field does is, I don't know how you guys might build like a custom image slider on a website. I know that some people do it via posts, and they'll like make images in posts, and then they'll have like a taxonomy term of slider, put it in that way. Some people create custom post types just for like hero slider, and then they put post images and posts and pull the query in that way using WP query. Repeater field is amazing for it because you can just stick this in the page, and what it does is you can build a set of fields, and then what you can do, so you can create like image field, and then if you've got like a title or caption on the image, like a lot of people do now, you can have a title field and a caption field. And then what you can do then is there'll be a button in the CMS, and you can add another row. So then it basically duplicates those fields, and you put another lot of information in. And when you put them into the template, you can query all of them, but it's only in that page. So it stores it as metadata in the page rather than having to go through and build like extra post types or extra taxonomies or extra terms in the taxonomies. You can set a minimum and maximum number, which is absolutely fantastic. That is a pro option. I was going to get onto that in a second. But it is really, really helpful, and all of it's customizable, and then you can all the way down to required. So you don't need to set like the repeater field itself to actually have to have content in. However, if you add a row, you can make sure that fields in that row have to have content in order to save. So it's really customizable in terms of how restrictive you are to the person editing the content. There was one problem with the repeater field actually that Jamie pointed out at the last meetup when I was going on and on about how good it was, and then he went and dropped a bombshell on me, and then I had to go away and be like, oh wow. Actually, I'd solved that problem without knowing it. Jamie tweeted me a link to an article the next day that talked about it, and I'd actually, basically what happens is if you use WP search functionality, it doesn't search deep enough in the metadata to actually be able to pull out all of the values from the repeater fields. There's a very, very easy fix for that, however, which is if you were to go to this link, I think they'll probably put this online at the end. There is literally just a GitHub gist that you can just copy that whole file, put it in your functions, and it solves the problem for you. I'm not even going to try and explain what it does, but it solves the problem. I already had it in the website that I had should have had this problem in to solve another problem. So I never actually encountered it, but it was nice to actually have someone come up to me and say, actually, that feels not as good as you think it is. And yeah, because it wasn't. But I would have thought that actually Elliot, who writes the plugin, will most probably put something along those lines in it relatively soon, because it's quite a simple snippet of code. Yeah. I did put a little video. Oh, that didn't work. Let's go back a little bit. The best thing about the Advanced Custom Fields plugin or the documentation is that all the individual fields, they have videos like this that the author has set up to show you how to set up all the fields. So this video, basically, there is sound to it, but all it is a little tune that really starts to drive you insane after you've listened to about one or two. But he just goes through and he just shows you how to set up like the basicest version of these fields, and then how to put them into the templates. Really good little videos if you're new to Advanced Custom Fields. Once you've used it once or twice, you probably know all of the functions that you need like the back of your hand, because they're really quite simple. I won't bore you and make you watch the rest of it. That was my way to make us waste a little bit of time, but I think we'll skip on past it. So the next one up is the select field. Everybody knows what a select field is. The best thing about this is that you can put as many values in as you want, so you can make the list as long as the page if you want to, and you can set values and labels for each value inside the select field. It has other settings, such as you can turn on a thing called stylized UI, which makes it look a bit prettier, have a search bar if your list is too long. But you can also then use multi-select on it as well, so if you need to select more than one thing, you can do. One of the things that we found in quite a few projects with the select field is that a lot of the time the options in it need to be dynamically populated. For example, if all of the things are in as posts somewhere else, so say it was like we're building one website at the moment for a school, and or it's for a college and they've got all their courses in it as a post type, and the drop down needs to have all of their course names. If every time they added a new course or deleted a course, they then had to go into the custom fields to delete one or add one, suddenly becomes a lot more of a pain, and the client will probably forget to do that as well, and it's not really something you should expect them to do. However, like it does with many other hundreds of awesome functions and filters and stuff it has in ACF, there's a very easy way to populate that. So you can pull those functions in. Now this is where this is probably going to go all wrong, because I did prepare a demo for this. So this is where I'm probably going to make a complete fool of myself, but I might sit down for this bit. So I even went through the trouble of setting up a nice little demo site for you guys, WP Bournemouth. And what I've done inside the page, that's the wrong page. What I've done here, you can see, is I've set up a number of custom fields already. So you've just got a normal text field, there's like a page subtitle. You've got a normal select field, which are basically in that one, I've populated it normally. So I've manually wrote in labels and values, which you would do if you know that they're not going to change all the time. And then we've got this repeater field. So the repeater field, you can see there that I can add a color. So basically, each row asks you for a name of a color, and then you've got the color picker tool where you can choose the color. It's literally as simple as that. If you want to add another one, you literally just press add color, and then you can, I've set a default value, but you can click on that, change the color, and write one. Does anyone have a favorite hex value?
FF99cc. He says, I know, 0099cc. There we go, let's go.
There you go. So I've added a color now for crisp blue. So if I was to update that field, what I'll do now is on the front end where I've already started pulling these in, if I was to refresh that, you're now going to get an extra colour straight away come up. May not look like much, but if you want to add, that's it in its simplest form. That is literally as simple as you could probably want to get with them. But it allows you to do really complex things. And one thing we started doing as well is nesting repeater fields inside repeater fields. It gets a bit scary. I wouldn't go any more than sort of 2 or 3 deep in that. But it can be really, really handy to do that. But I wouldn't advise it if there's another way around of doing it. Don't just do it for the sake of it.
Is there a bit of a drag on performance if you start going too far in there?
I'll get to that bit a bit further on over. So, yeah, I'll come back to that. Sorry, I'm not trying to dismiss it. There is definitely a bit in there about that. So the best thing about that now is that you'll find that this one here, not that one, this one here, I've already wrote a function for, which I'll show you in the functions file in a minute, which pulls in the colours from this repeater field. So the more colours you add, every time you update it, they'll be added to this. So now if I was to click Crisp Blue there and update the page, I am doing this on a live site because my mount broke on me earlier and I haven't had time to fix it. But, now I've got a conditional in that adds this sentence in. So it's literally, that select field has literally pulled in those values. You can then choose those values and you've got that, which is a really nice handy tool to have. So basically what happens with that is the function is this here, which, yeah. Can I zoom in? I've never zoomed in on it. It's an old version of Coda.
Might be easy just to up to resolution.
Yeah, it's not working. Oh, it is working. It didn't work a second ago when I pressed that. Can everyone read that? Anyway, this is on the website. I literally just pulled this straight from the website and just changed the values that I needed to change. So what this does is this is called the load field function. And what this does is this works for select fields and like radio button fields and checkbox fields, where you can add as many options as you like. Now what this does is that you can call, this is the repeater loop, so this is what would be in every page that you put a repeater field in here. So it works a bit like a WP query, so you check if it's got a colour field, and then if it has got a colour field, you get the values from each one and then keep looping until you got them all. That's what we do here. So here we're creating values out of the fields that we've made. So you've got your colour name, and then the colour picker is the obviously the colour picker tool, and that outputs as a hex value. And then what we're doing here is we're setting the hex value as the value of the select field, and then the name as the label. So you've then got straight away, you'll see the name, but then as soon as you were to put it into the code, you pull in the value out, and then you've got that's how I did the colour in the template, which looks like that one. Is that zoomed in enough? So I'm inside the actual template now. I'm in the frontpage.php. What this does is, so this runs through the repeater field, checks for them, it gets them, and then obviously I just wrote a style class that puts the hex value in as the colour of the text. And you can literally pull values straight from the database, as simple as that. I will get into detail a bit more about what the different, I probably should put it further through this template, the presentation about the different functions, but that's the next bit. So There is 4 main functions for getting data from your custom fields in the database. The main 2 being the field and get field. The field is basically the equivalent of echo get field, and what get field does is returns the value of the field so that you can store it as a variable or then print it into the page, which is what you're going to probably use most of the time. I personally can't stand shortcodes and really didn't want to put it in there. However, you can also call them straight in the WYSIWYGs with a shortcode, and all you have to do is put the field name. If it's in the post, if the field's stored in a post that you're writing in the WYSIWYG, you just literally have to put the field name. If it's on a different post, you can just put the field name and then the post ID inside a shortcode that looks like that, and you can put it straight into a WYSIWYG, which is quite handy. I don't do that just because I have a vengeance against shortcodes, but that's just my feelings on them. Then you've also got get subfield. Now the get subfield is exactly the same as the get field, however it gets used inside repeater fields. So if you wanted to get the value of a normal text field in the page, you would use get field and then the text field's name. If that text field was inside the repeater, once you run the repeater loop, it would be get subfield and then the text name. It's all quite simple really, and it is literally, I've said it loads of times already, it's all in the documentation and really well written. I said it again there, look, what's the best part? This probably is the best part, actually, thinking about it. And that's that you can get any data from any page or post that you've used a custom field on in any page or post. So if you store a value in the home page, if you write a custom field in the home page, you can call that in the contact page literally by just using the field, put the field value name, and then the post ID after it. It's literally as simple as that. That's probably is my favourite thing about it, because you can just call those values anywhere. So if you needed to get something from a page, you don't necessarily have to start calling get post functions or queries or anything like that in order to get those values, which is really nice. It saves a lot of time and a lot of code normally. Some really other really cool things with ACF is that you can query posts via custom fields as well. So rather than just query posts by, say, post type taxonomies, dates, things like that, you can actually query them by meta keys and values. So if I had a bunch of posts and they all had a color field in, you could query the color field and pull all posts that have like a red color, which is really, really nice way of doing things. That example there is just setting up the arguments for a get post function. It works pretty much the same way for a WP query. There's really not much to it. I pulled these screenshots straight from the documentation just because there was really no point in me rewriting them just to prove the point.
Am I right in saying this just applies to custom fields, not necessarily just advanced custom fields, this stuff, doing this query stuff? Is that right?
It does, but I think it's a little bit slightly different syntax, I think, if you were to do it with normal WordPress custom fields. What I would say about that is that if you're going to start using custom fields, it's probably bad to say this, but I would skip straight over the WordPress custom fields, just because the free version of ACF does everything that you could do with custom fields, but it does it in, it's got a nicer interface. I mean, I'm normally one that's trying to drive people to code things and use the terminal for Git rather than use like a GUI for it. But in terms of this, there is literally no reason why you should be coding them all. I don't think, unless there's a really complex situation that you need them for.
It's not really advanced custom fields because it's easier to use than custom fields.
I know. I think the name is quite ironic on it, really. But it's yeah, I would skip Blaze straight over the normal custom fields. I only put it in there because the normal custom fields, I didn't even think about comparing it until Ian sent me a link to an article about advanced custom fields the other day. And I forgot custom fields. I haven't used them in so long, I completely forgot that they even exist in the screen options. But yeah, you can do everything so much easier, quicker. It's easier to manage your custom fields. It's easier to replicate them. everything to do with them was easier, even just with the free version of ACF. That I would just blaze straight over the WordPress's built-in ones and use the plugin. Going back to a previous question about whether it's a bit more intensive to run. In the Pro version of ACF, they have a feature called JSON. What this does is it's really simple to set up. If you wanted to set it up basically, you create a folder in your theme called ACF-JSON. Make sure it has the right keymod permissions so it can be written to and read. And basically from that point on, every time you make a change to your field groups or save something in your field groups, it saves it into a JSON file inside that folder. So rather than have to constantly make database queries to find out what custom fields you've got, it stores it all in the JSON files rather than your database. It gets a lot more complicated than that. It goes quite deep. There's also another part of the JSON called scheduled JSON, so you can I don't even know how to describe it. If you get interested in it, again, it's all in the documentation, but it's a really, really good thing to use. If you're doing when you get started with it, it's probably not important. But the more fields you put in, you really do see the speed increase across your site, which is really nice. The only thing I would say is the security. Does everybody know? Well, you've probably read that now. I'm going to stand in front of it in case you haven't. Does anybody know why in every single core, inside the core of WordPress, why every single folder has the index.php with just silences golden written in it? Does everybody know why that is?
So it's passing files.
Exactly. So the only thing to say is when you create that folder of ACF JSON, make sure you do that exact thing. Otherwise, you're letting yourself in with vulnerability. That's the only drawback really to it. It's quite, because I normally get amazed that people didn't know that, but then I didn't know why that index.php was there for far too long. So it was.
You can solve that problem with better web server configuration and things like that, but WordPress is brilliant in that for people who don't have access.
Yeah. I think it's just a good way to start as a basic tool. Yeah. Another really good thing with ACF Pro is that you can add options pages to the CMS incredibly easily rather than having to use the WordPress's really long-winded and roundabout way of doing things. It has functions built in. The difference with the options pages is you do have to do a slight bit of code. But then that's another thing with ACF is you don't actually have to use the ACF interface inside of of WordPress to use it. You can write all of your fields manually using their functions as well, which is quite good. But the options page is amazing because it's done instantly. I have another demo quickly that I'm going to show you. Hopefully with a bit more success than the last one. There was a video about setting up an options page, but I put that in before I decided I was going to show you this. So I've already built the options page. I've wrote the function here. And what I've done is I just changed the title that appears in the menu on the sidebar, changed the slug of it, and told it what capabilities to have, so it appears like an edit post page, basically. What you can also set up redirects. So you can, if you didn't want the page to actually be there, you can redirect it to another one or do other things with that. I've never really used that option too often, never needed to. But what that does is that's created that one little bit of code there, which if you take out the comment a bit, that's just creating sub pages to the options page. It's, again, there's other functions for ACF. If you were to go to the wrong way. So if you go to your CMS, I've now got a theme settings tab right there. What I've also done is I've built a custom field group for the option page. So I called it option page field group, so I know what it is. Just tried to set an example there. And basically, this is where you set your location rules. So I can choose this field group to show anywhere. So at the moment, it's set to show on an options page, which has the main theme settings. But if I wanted to, if I no longer wanted that page, and I say built a normal page, I wanted to put that on, I would literally just have to go to page and make sure the page is equal to whichever one. Demo sites have only got one, but I'm not going to do that. And then inside this custom field, I've set up the same repeater field, exactly the same way as the one we've used on the page earlier. And what we're going to do now is where we've got, I've already added colours to this one. I built a bit of a palette earlier. And what we're going to do now is if you were to go to edit page, this is the page we were on earlier, and at the moment it's still got the colours we've done with Chris's blue in. What we want to do now is we want to change that select field so that pre-populates from the options page, which is probably what you're more likely to do than, say, pulling them directly from the page that you're in, because that's kind of pointless. I just did that as a demo, really. Now, to change that, again, really simple. We go back to our previous function that we had earlier, and all we have to do, at the moment, that's got the page ID in of the home page, which is why it knows to pull that field from the home page. All we've got to do is change that to the word option, which then checks the option pages for that field name. And then if I save that, and then one way, if I go back to that page, wherever it is, I was already on it, and refresh it, all of a sudden we're pulling in the colours from the options page, which is a really handy thing to do, especially like some people use it for contact details, pull in the right contact details into each page without actually having to constantly change them all the time. Because if you're pulling a contact detail, say you've got one person and then we had this problem with a day, they got married and they changed their last name, rather than go through every single instance of it in the site, you could store those people as in, say, a people options page. And then you pull them, and if you change it there, you change it everywhere, just by using that select field. So now if I was to change that, if I change it to that colour, pomegranate. Hey, I just used I just googled color codes, color hexes and names of colors earlier, and I copied and pasted them. And now if I'm to go back, if I was to refresh that now, all of a sudden we're putting in the right color and value from an options page. I honestly don't know how easy I've made that look. I feel like it's been crazy at the moment, and I haven't really had time to practice this and rehearse it as much as I wanted to. I've put so much effort into the PowerPoint, but I haven't actually been able to go through it and make sure that it's all there. But it really is simple. It really is easy. And if you build themes or build websites with WordPress, I honestly, and I know a few other people here that do use it, would highly encourage you to use this as a plugin. It just makes everything so easy. Mainly the repeater fields, like I said, and the options fields. I said about sliders earlier, if you were to only have an image slider without any content on it, so you just want images, there's a really nice field that's in the ACF Pro version called Gallery field, and you can literally just pull images into that one, and they're laid out a bit nicer than if you were to do it as a repeater field. One of the other parts of it is that with the fields you can add classes to the fields if you wanted to, get carried away in the admin CSS, and you can completely change the style and layout of the page. We don't do that too much, but we do use the width function in them, so every field you can set a width, so we lay them out really well. I was going to show you an example, but I don't think that I can get into it right now.
One thing I like to do with some advanced custom field things is in the location drop-down, you can also make that field appear or not appear based on specific users or users' roles. That's the one I use particularly. So on a page, I can have some fields that are only seen and therefore editable by admins. There's certain types of admins, so like you've got administrator or editor or subscriber. That could be quite handy.
It really does make, because WordPress, like obviously historically a blogging platform or blogging framework, but now they're sort of saying it is a full-on CMS. But really, ACF allows you to make it a full-on CMS, because if you had a really complex site with bits and bobs and profiles of company members and their images, how would you get your client to fill that in? With WordPress as basic, you've got your type, you'd be using posts, you'd be having a post for every person, and you'd only be able to use like the content and then a featured image. But this ACF just allows you to give them complete control, but ring fence control, because clients obviously can go crazy on sites, but it's just, yeah, it makes it a full-on CMS.
Where it made a massive difference for me was when I had to take a site that didn't have a CMS behind it and then put a CMS behind it. So I used WordPress, but without those custom fields, I wouldn't do hardly anything I would have been able to actually make that was already in there, designed up and work.
Yeah.
Wouldn't have been able to make any of that edited.
One thing I'd say with that is that, I mean, ACF really helps you build a bespoke sort of CMS without you writing your own CMS. I don't know, has anybody looked at the Gutenberg editor that's coming with WordPress?
All the new content blocks and stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, a little bit, but
Yeah, I mean, I'm personally, that looks like that's going to sort of tackle that problem for you quite a lot. But it'll be interesting to see where that goes.
I can only see it being sort of like a simple bit extra, because you can see change and put blocks of code or blocks of text and images. But if you're designing a site and you're taking a design that a designer's done, and you want to make it completely bespoke and allow the client to edit that bit all the way up there and that bit over there, surely the sort of the new editor within WordPress won't allow you to.
I think that's it, until we get a demo of it, I don't know if until we get a demo of it though, I don't know if we'll ever know that. Anyway, I really wanted to show you the WordPress admin page to this, but I have messed up and I forgot to unlock it. It's whitelisted, it's like blacklisted unless you're on the right IP, so I can't show you that, so I do apologise. However, this page has got, I think it's something like 30 custom fields in it. It sounds like a lot, but it's not. If we were to leave a lot of the way this is done to the client in a WYSIWYG editor, which a lot of people do, it's just going to go wrong. They've got this, I mean, I haven't showed you this is in beta stage at the moment, so I have not showed you this website, but it's the best example of it. If we were to trust the client to be able to, say, change all of the colours and all of this stuff with a WYSIWYG, they have a ridiculous amount of courses. It's just not practical. Whereas they have Excel files of all of their things, so we were able to actually create a CSV and import them into all of the custom fields from their Excel file with all the information, which is another thing that you can do. There's plugins that allow you to access their custom fields with CSV importers, so you can just do it all like really simply. But it's more practical for the client, because if they need to then add another course, it's so straightforward for them, step by step by step. So their start dates, that's a field, that's a field, that's a field, that's a field. Sounds like the page is not, but because you've got things like the width option on every field, you can, it's not just like one field after another and you're scrolling for ages. All of these actually are on across 2 lines in the CMS and take up minimal space, and the client absolutely loves it because they can't break it. And I'm sure that most developers have a hatred of clients just for the reason that they break their websites. And we found that clients broke them significantly less when we started breaking them up more. On pages where they need a bit more creativity, so we haven't got custom fields for all of these, because these aren't all the same across all of the courses. So say that is a WYSIWYG, and you can change that. But then you've got things like timetables and course fees. Now this uses a repeater field. So if there's a different variation of this course, which there is on quite a few of them, they add it all for the first variation, and they literally just press add a row, and the fields are there for them to do it again, and then they save it. Whereas if you were to just slam a table in a WYSIWYG, it's not going to work very well. I think this was my perfect example, and I really messed it up by not being able to show the CMS. So I'm sorry about that, but that's a perfect reason to use ACF, I think. And it really sums up what clients can and can't do, because that page would not look like that if I let the clients go in and manually break it all. And the interesting thing about this is, so these guys, they have different course categories like you'd expect for a college or a university. And they, through their prospectuses, before they came to us with their website, they actually have a colour assigned to each course type. So they have an options page, funny enough. I didn't actually think of that when I did that demo earlier. I could have copied that code and saved some time. But on their options page, we set the colour for each course. So you've got pink for the general English courses, which goes through the whole of the site. But then if you were to go back to courses, you can see all the different colours that they have. So you've got the pinks, you've got greens and blues, and then if you were to go through to their other ones, you can see that the colours run through it. And it's those options page and those repeater fields, they all allow us to give the client a lot more flexibility without actually being able to let them break anything. So it's not that we just give them a set of fields and they can only put that content. We're kind of sort of flexible with how we do it. And that's just, I think, probably one of the better examples of other ways to use it. Because I never really thought of setting the options page up with the colours until we sort of started this one, and it works really nicely. Let's go back before I say that for too long and then I get fired tomorrow. So let's talk about ACF Pro. ACF Pro is the best £60-70 you'll ever spend as a WordPress developer. I spent about a year trying to convince my boss to buy it. It's like £60-70 and we make God knows how many websites, and he just wasn't interested in it. And now he always says to me, why didn't you make me buy you that ages ago? And I'm like, I've been trying. And he even said to me the other day, we were talking about something to do with it, and he said that now he would pay like £1,000 for it. The most incredible thing about it is it's like £50 to £60, but it's unlimited support, lifetime of updates. It's not like most places where you get like a year and then after the year you've got to subscribe again. You've literally got forever. And the amount of the install base and the amount of people that are on it, I don't think that it's going anywhere anytime soon. We actually have conversations quite a lot on how much money the guy can be making from it because of it's so cheap, and you only pay him for it once. But then you see the install base, and then you can see where that money's coming from. I mean, yeah, that install base is only for the free version. There's no statistics out there for the pro version, but I would hazard a guess that the pro version is quite a higher figure as well, to be honest. Now the pro version has extra things I've already covered, but it has the repeater field, which I've just banged on about. The gallery field, which I said about for the slider. A flexible content field. I'm not going to talk about that one because I don't really know too much about it. I found it quite confusing. I know a lot of developers love it. I found better ways to achieve, in my opinion, to achieve the same output. However, I think if you get your head around it better than I did, it's a pretty good one. It's like a repeater field, but you can add different content blocks in places. It's more for setting layouts rather than additional rows of content. Is that what you're going to say? Or?
Yeah, I was going to say that your website example that you had a couple of slides ago when you were showing it, the bit that you said wasn't a form part of ACF, which was the main part of the site, because it was kind of different sections, different layouts. If you had like a defined amount of them, you could use the flexible content.
Yeah.
So, well, if the course was this type, that meant the image was on the left, and then you had a list of the things.
Yeah.
If the course was this type, it was just one big image. The client could say, well, I want this kind of course, and just fill out.
One way that we went was because when I started at the agency I work at now, a lot of the WordPress sites they built were made using a theme called Divi. I don't know how many people know that. Anybody who knows me, I cannot stand that theme. I hate it with a passion. I believe it has its uses for like people, novices with WordPress, or people that aren't willing to spend a lot of money to get themselves a website. But in my eyes, probably not something that an agency charging a lot of money should be using to do it. We have slung that off a long time ago, and we rebuilt all the sites that we were using Divi with because probably rather arrogantly of me, refused to use it, and I refused to update the sites that were with it because it wasn't reliable. And if you haven't got your child theme set up right, every time it gets an update, you're in a whole world of trouble. And I have from having to look at Divi sites, I have a really strong mentality of I want to keep my sites as far from the way that Divi works as I can. So we tend to build more templates that they can choose from rather than give them the option on the page. But that's just the way, people work different ways. That's the way that the avenue that we've gone down. But I suppose if you want to give people a page builder, a flexible content is a way of doing that without making it horrible like Divi is. But that's just my opinion. Then you've got the clone field, which is, I've not found too many uses for it. It's actually it's a new field added recently. But what that allows you to do is if there's a field in another field group or another page that you want to use in the page without making it again, so you store it as like a subset in the database of it, you can just copy that. You can use the clone field to pull that field or those fields in rather than completely keep recoding them all the time. And then you can store them as sub-values. It's a nice tool, but yeah, I've not found too many ways of doing it. But I think it's added quite late, and I already have quite an established workflow with sort of what I use ACF for. So I have a way, if it's someone says to me, how are you going to do that? I've probably already got a way to do it. So I think that's probably why I've not found a good reason for it yet. Options pages, and then again the JSON, which if you get more complex sites, like the one I just showed you, if you were to add that many fields and not use JSON, how easy it is to install, you've probably got a screw loose. As soon as I found it, like the speed, I think it's something like halved, just from setting up the initial basic folder. When I got announced that I was doing this talk, we got retweeted by the ACF plugins Twitter, and then I got approached by another company called Hookturn that make a plugin called ACF Theme Code. I'd never heard of it. However, they were nice enough to give me a free version of it to actually try out and talk about to you guys. And I think they're trying to see if they want me to talk about other places as well, which is pretty cool. But this plugin's amazing. If you are new to ACF, it's awesome. Basically what it does is when you build your fields, so this is like the standard field page, we've just minimized all the different options that you get in the page. This is the page that I built earlier, so you've got a heading, and then this one's a flexible content field. I deleted this page, but you've got a repeater field. What happens further down the page is it automatically gives you the code to copy and paste into the template if you want to do it for ease of use. I don't use it that much anymore. Since I started using it, I used it. It was a really cool thing for me, but I know ACF so well now that I'd rather type it most of the time now. But if you're getting started with ACF, I'd say it's a pretty fantastic way of learning the functions and learning how to deal with them, even right down to the repeater fields.
Is that the code you put in your theme to output?
Yeah, so that you literally copy and paste that, you put that into the template for whichever page or post you're working on, and you get the values straight out of it. Which is really nice then if you're new, having to go back to the documentation just to remember the field. It's simple, but I forgot it loads of times when I was starting with ACF. So it's just a really nice way of saving time. They have a free version. You don't actually need the pro version. I just put that there so you're aware of how much it costs. It's actually not too bad in terms of how much time it saves you. But the free version doesn't include support for any of ACF Pro's features. So if you wanted the repeater field, it wouldn't show you the code for the repeater field. You'd need the pro version to do that. Apart from that, you don't really need the pro version. So if you're just using standard ACF, don't bother with the pro version. As far as I'm aware, I might be wrong. I really haven't spent enough time in it, looking around at what you get and what you don't get. I was gifted pro like straight away, so I only saw for about a few minutes the fields that you couldn't. And then I was like, dude, I can't access the repeater fields, why is that? And he was like, you need the Pro version, and then I was like, and because I use them everywhere, the Pro version was a necessity for me. That is the end. I feel like I've babbled on loads. I feel like it got a bit messy in places, and I feel like I lost my way a little bit in some places, so I do apologise, but I hope that people might walk out of here having learned a little bit of something about ACF. Next time I'll try and get time to practice it a bit more. Does anyone have any questions? Because I'm more than willing to answer any you might have about ACF, if I know the answers. If I don't, I'll just tell you I don't. Yeah?
So I've worked with a lot of other CMSs before I came to WordPress, and there's always big companies and big organisations where that thing about having something you don't want the client to mess up is really huge. That's what CMSs are for them. What I don't understand is why this isn't bigger than it is, and why people aren't using it. Have there been others that have not just got the...
I think there's a few different ways you can do it. So you've got WordPress's standard custom fields. There's other plugins that do similar things, but ACF just does more. There's literally one, I think it's literally called Custom Fields plugin, which just does the standard add-in pages, but it doesn't give you the control and the flexibility that ACF gives you. There's also CMB2. I don't know if anybody's used that. Yeah, it's called Custom Meta Boxes. I tried that, and then I found ACF, and I never looked back.
Because I was reading about it a couple of years ago, and I heard of this, but I'm not a developer, so I didn't.
Yeah.
But it just seems like it's such a powerful thing for WordPress. I can't believe it's not.
It is an incredibly powerful.
It's not being used more.
I think that's why we were so shocked when John Jin did a talk about Twig and Timber and building WordPress with that rather than like standard PHP, and he said, "Oh, it's got full support for ACF," and it was like, "Who uses ACF?" And it was, as far as I can remember, it was like me and one other person was like, "We use it," and that's literally where this talk came from, because we were talking and we were like, how come nobody was using this? And I think to most developers it is a big thing now. It's rare that until that night actually, that I've spoken to developers that don't use it. If you don't use it, I'd ask you why you don't use it. People have good reasons for it. It's not for every site. We don't necessarily. There is a few sites we build that we don't use it in. It's just rare that we come across them now, because especially since the introduction of JSON, ACF started to slow down the admins, and then as soon as we got the JSON thing in the Pro version, the admin screens just sped up again, and it's just fantastic. So why it's not used more, I can't tell you. I think it is used quite a lot though now. It's growing more and more.
The thing with ACF is though that the plugin does. You could do. Yeah, but you could also, if you didn't know about ACF and you said, right, I've got this page and I want the client to fill out, their social media handles and the Twitter links and stuff, you could build that meta box to appear in the WordPress edit page underneath the WYSIWYG editor with 3 input text for Twitter, Facebook, whatever, and you could build that and make it save to the database so the client could do it. And so many developers just roll their own advanced custom fields. Basically, they build the meta boxes as and when they need them.
Yeah.
And for years I was doing that, thinking, well, I don't need a plugin to do that because I know the code and I can write that and I can put that specific box there. But doing that for everything that you need when you really want the client to have full control, but also no control, if you know what I mean. And ACF is just that builder for you to say, well, I want that there and I want that there, and you don't do any code. So I think that the people, they're skinning the cat in different ways to make it a CMS, but ACF is definitely popular, and CMB2 is popular as well.
Yeah, I think it's a more to my eyes, it's a more developer-friendly version of, say, and simplified version of, say, Visual Composer and the sort of thing you'd find in Divi, without the clutter and without having things that you don't need. So you don't have to add fields because you don't need them, whereas if you were to use something like Visual Composer, those fields are there whether you like it or not, sort of thing. And clients might, especially with Visual Composer, and you format all of the things that are there, you might not format them all because you don't need them, and then clients might.
It's more of a controlled page.
Yeah, yeah.
You're controlling it for your design, but you're giving the client full control, whereas Divi or Page Builder, they could just do whatever they want because it allows them to do carte blanche and just put anything anywhere, but it might look completely rubbish with your design. But ACF is just, it's a controlled environment, isn't it?
I word it to my boss. It allows us to have greater control over the client without them realising that we're in control of them.
But the client likes it. Because
Yeah, and they
it's
like
easier
it.
interface.
It's I mean,
They
if
can't
you,
screw it up. Yeah.
But they could change literally every letter on the page if they wanted to, or every part.
yeah.
You could give them that
We
control.
used to deal so much in just WYSIWYG editors for pages, and it's just not practical. And I think that when we started using ACF, we started going back through sites that didn't implementing it because sites just weren't working. Like,
It's a lot of form fields that they used to see on the front end of their websites, like click to upload
Yeah.
an image or colour.
yeah.
All things like that.
And it allows you to name them, and it's like one of the things I don't really cover is it allows you to put descriptions in above the fields. I don't know if you saw them when I showed you some of the pages. It might be easier.
I always wonder whether anyone reads them.
I've
It's helpful for the client. It is helpful. That's a marker for them to.
Oh yeah, but then they still get it wrong, and then they wonder whether they've actually read
So I've wrote the simplest ones here. You're probably not going to be able to read it from at the back, but literally it just says subtitle, and underneath it I've got this is an example text field. That's all I wrote for you guys because that's all you need to know. But if you were to put a field in for something else for the client, you can tell them exactly what to do. You can spoon feed it to them. With images, you can spoon feed to them resolutions or sizes or what sort of images don't need to be in there if you want to. So it's not just stick a field in a page of a name. You can then put these descriptions in, which then give it another lease of life again for them to know what they're talking
I
about.
used that to describe to them that actually affects them on the front end.
Yeah,
You can
That's
see
what-
this in the sidebar.
that's what we do
Yeah.
quite a lot. And then so that if we've got fields, most of our fields we run on conditionals anyway. So if you don't fill it out, that part of the page won't show anyway. But for things that we know that definitely like 50% of the time aren't going to get filled out on certain templates, it'll be like, if you do not fill this out, it won't show up. Because clients still think that they need to fill it out if it's there. And then they'll put something in there that's completely pointless of being in the page and doesn't need to be there. So it's just handy to that. So it just gives you even more control again. More than you'd think. You might think that descriptions don't really help that much, or people don't read them. I didn't think they read them to start with until I started putting some detailed ones in on images, especially if you say this image shows here, this image shows there, and this image shows down there. Obviously in a more descriptive form than that, like this image is the hero image or something like that. Then people genuinely get a better understanding and they cater to the fields more.
Yeah, really good. I mean, I've worked with people, we have a whole separate department who are doing kind of training how to use the site, and they spend hours writing documentation, which doesn't tie in with the actual screens they use.
Yeah.
So people have enough documentation here.
We found as well that we're quite restrictive with our WordPress, so we lock down the admins quite a lot, so it gives the clients even less chance of breaking anything out. So that we hide the plugin menus, we hide the setting menus, things like that. One client specifically, they already knew WordPress a little bit, and they said, "How are you doing the fields?" And I said, "We're doing advanced custom fields." And he was like, "Oh, can I have access to that?" And I was like, "Ooh." In the end, we ended up giving it to him, and he basically started building adding fields to the templates that he wanted but never went to us for. We quoted him a price to add him, and he was like, "No, I'll do it myself now. I know how to do it." Probably not a good thing if you're running a business. But this guy, he didn't have much money at all, and he basically built all the fields, but then paid us to put them in the templates. And he did it all perfectly right. What I made him do was duplicate the field groups to start with, so he didn't break any of the ones that were there. And it even gave that client that more flexibility, so he got to build pages with fields that he wanted in without breaking anything. And we then built the pages for him. So, because it can be a bit of a pain as a developer if you are spending most of your time. I don't know what I'd rather be doing. I'd rather be coding than building custom fields. So we have it in the office now where one of the account managers, if she knows that I'm really busy and I need to build fields and she's not got a lot to do, she'll come up and ask me what fields or get all the files off me where we've planned out the site, and she'll then go down and start building the fields for me, so then I just have to put them in the feed. So it can give you a better workflow across the team as well, because it means that other people can just drop in on your tasks. And especially with JSON, I don't know how many people use Git, but the JSON means that then you can monitor all of your field changes on Git. So if somebody adds ones you don't want or puts them in the wrong place, you can then roll it straight back. So it gives you more control over them as well. You've got version control over your custom fields then, which is just fantastic, really.
That Git thing and the JSON is amazing when it comes to deploying the site as well. Because if you've previously, before they had the JSON feature, all of the ACF definition of your fields that you define for the client is stored in the database. And you do that locally, you add all your new fields, and then suddenly you want to put your feature live and give your client access to it. You've got to either copy or replicate all the fields you've just configured in your local backend and do it on the live site, or you've got to migrate the database across, but it wipes out all the other stuff, and it's a complete nightmare to try and deploy it safely.
If you did want to, there's another way you can do it without using the JSON side of things. Once you set up your custom field, you can then get advanced custom fields to give you the PHP code pushing your theme.
Yeah.
You would then programmatically create those fields when the themes run in the same way the classic custom fields you'd have to go and write them yourself.
Do you mean like the import and export?
Yeah, you can export it.
Yeah, that's what we used to use that before we did the JSON was the import.
Yeah, I prefer the JSON way.
Yeah, the JSON, and it's sort of more automatic, isn't it? Because it creates the JSON file as you save, as opposed to you having to export it and put the file back into Git. And the JSON just updates.
It's not even that, it's centralised in your theme with everything else then as well, and it's all automatically there. You're not having to do any extra steps to do it. If you save a field, it's automatically in your theme. You're not then having to download it, move it from your downloads to the right folder, and it's just a really nice way of doing things. Any other questions? I know there's a lot to take in with ACF. It makes it sound really scary, but it's really not. I encourage all of you, probably if you've never used it, if you've got a site that you don't use or got a demo site, just install it and add fields to a page that's hidden, just to have a play with it. And I'd be surprised if you don't come back here and say you fell in love with it.
Have you ever had performance issues with it? Or,
We haven't, no. The admin screens we found were slowing down massively when we were getting a large amount of them. But it was all countered by the way the JSON works.
You shouldn't see anything on the front end of the site, but if you had like a repeater and a repeater and a repeater in the back end, in the admin, it's got to render all of those boxes, and it does it all through JavaScript and Ajax, so you can reorder fields and click to delete them. So it kind of has to render all of that, and that gets sluggish sometimes.
Okay.
But that's only in the admin, so your client might just be a bit annoyed at how slow the back end is, but it won't affect the front end.
It's interesting that you hit a resistance in buying the plugin.
I know.
It's only 60 or 70 quid.
I know.
To work out what that actually is in terms of man hours.
Yeah.
Oh, we've saved.
Yeah.
We must have saved.
You probably spent more money having the conversation
I would-
about trying to buy a custom field pro.
I would agree.
That it costs. Yeah.
I think part of the problem when that was happening was that when I was first trying to get that going, was Divi was still a bigger part of the agency than it is now. So it was like, if we can use that to do it, why do you want that sort of thing?
Particularly that it's a lifetime license as well.
I know, it's incredible. If I got an email from Elliot tomorrow on the ACF newsletter and said, "Oh, we're releasing a new version, you need to pay for it again," I'd pay for it in a heartbeat. So.
Because its client keeps the client happy as well. It's not just developer happiness. It gives them so much more.
I know I probably sound like I'm getting paid to say this. I'm really not. I'm not endorsed by it in any way, shape or form. I got a note.
Except you get free promotions from other plugins.
Yeah, that was a sly marketing tactic from them, wasn't it?
I don't think I was supposed to. I'm actually pretty sure he told me in the message not to say I got it for free.
Full disclosure and all that.
yeah.
I'm terrible with secret people, you know.
We appreciate the honesty.
I think that's fair enough, to be honest.
Yeah.
But I would encourage that. If you haven't used ACF, I would really encourage that you did use that theme code, but just because you aren't going backwards or forwards to documentation all the time. I personally tell people to try type it because I think you learn it more rather than copy and pasting it. However, if you're in a rush or you just want to see how powerful it is as a tool, it's really good.
And that $48 for that, is that a lifetime?
I think that one was only a year.
Okay.
Like, it's a year of
It's free.
supports, yeah. Whereas ACF Pro, yeah, I don't know why that's lifetime. I can't get my head around it now.
Yeah, but lifetime is lifetime. It's not your lifetime. It's lifetime of if he decides to
Still,
say
we've
I'm
been-
setting
yeah,
up shop
we've
tomorrow.
been
Then,
for years. I would have paid it. It should at least be years.
Yeah,
I
oh,
don't,
yeah.
Not that we want to pay more, but it should.
Once that time of keeping them
Yeah.
and the license is expiring.
Yeah. Any more questions? I'll be around afterwards if anybody'd rather not ask it. I'm around. Thank you.
Cool.